let's see how to take this and fix it with these and these. Hey guys, Nick here from Everything Electronic, and today I want to show you how to fix this chainsaw. Now, this chainsaw I found on the side of the road. It is a 452 VL Echo chainsaw. Now, if your chainsaw is not working, you can follow along because chainsaws are pretty similar. Let's see how to fix this. Note, one thing to do before working on your saw is to unplug the spark plug cap. That way, if you are working on your saw and you accidentally do something that would start it, it does not cut your fingers off. This is important safety. Okay, so the first thing I recommend when working on your new chainsaw is to work outside. That way you don't get gassy smells inside your house. The first thing I like to do on a chainsaw when I'm working on it is to take this bar off. That is pretty simple. You can take something like a socket wrench and unscrew these two bolts. What I like to do when working on any gasoline machine and when I'm taking it apart is to lay all the parts out in the order that I took them off. That way I can put them all together to make a fully running machine. So take this plate off and let's set it here and put our bolts here and here so we know where they go. So the next thing you want to do is to remove this chain. Now you need to loosen the chain. As you can see, my chain's already quite loose. But if your chain is tight, you want to find your tensioner screw, which will allow you to move this bar forward and backwards a little bit to give your chain tension. You want to find that screw and set it so that this chain is very loose. Then you can take this chain off by pulling it and messing around with it until it comes off. So now, as you can see, we have the chainsaw bar off. You want to inspect it and make sure that it is clean and not worn too much. If the chain has rubbed on it so much that it's really thin, then you will probably need to replace this. Also check that the oiling holes are clear, because that is the way that the oil will go from the chainsaw to the bar to allow your chain to last longer. Once you've inspected this and cleaned it, you can set it aside. Again, you should try to keep your workstation clean and show out how you took apart this machine, which will best help your reassembling. So let's take a second to clean this up. So now we have it all cleaned up. My chainsaw here has these little metal plates. If yours has these, just take them off too and set them in the order that you took them off. Now you should have just your chainsaw, and you have your two screws here for mounting the bar on, and your clutch. This clutch is what is connected to the motor and allows your chain to spin when you give it gas, but also not spin when you're not giving it full throttle. Check and make sure that your clutch is spinning freely. If it is, cool. So now that we've inspected this whole section, let's move on to the next section, which will be this back end. So now let's take the spark plug out and inspect it. That is one thing that can be very easy to fix that can cause a lot of problems for your engine. So let's unscrew that. Here I'm using a wrench to unscrew the spark plug, but you can use something like a socket wrench too. Once you've loosened it, you can use your fingers to unscrew the spark plug. And here we have the spark plug. Let's take a closer look. So here's the spark plug. If you can see, this one's a bit black, which means it's dirty and we need to clean it, or you can buy a new one. In this case, I'm going to try to clean it. The way I like to clean it is using a toothbrush and carburetor cleaner. I like to spray a little bit of carb cleaner on the spark plug and the toothbrush. Let it soak in for a second and then rub it down. So let's do that. Okay, so now that's clean. Let's move on. Okay, so now that we've finished the spark plug stuff, let's go back and look at the air filter on this side. Note, the positions of these places will be different depending on what saw you're using, but this is just a general system where if you can find your air filter, then you can do these steps. If you can find where your bar is, you can do these steps. Same with your spark plug. So now let's take out the air filter and make sure that's clean. So on my saw, you can unscrew it right here with this little knob. So here we have our air filter, cover, and our air filter. This is a little dirty. Let's see if we can clean it. So underneath where the air filter is, you can see your carburetor. This is what is regulating the gas and air going into the engine to allow it to run. If after doing all these steps your chainsaw is still not running, then you probably need to pull out your carburetor and clean it. There are lots of videos on how to do that, especially depending on what chainsaw you have. So just look up that specific chainsaw and you can probably find some tips on how to clean your carb. Now let's take out the fuel. If you just put fuel in this, if this had an empty tank, then it is probably fine to put new fuel in. But if yours came with fuel in it like mine did, that fuel's probably bad and you're not sure what's in it. So let's empty the fuel out and put brand new fuel in, which we know will work well. So now let's empty the fuel from this chainsaw into a jar. Now if you're using a plastic jar, make sure it's a type of plastic that does not melt when gasoline touches it. I have had some bad experiences melting cups. So let's take out this fuel and put it in a jar. You may not want to be doing it on something like a nice floor because you're probably going to spill a little gas. Okay, so my chainsaw had a little fuel in it and it looks pretty good, but let's set this aside and make sure you... So my fuel... Okay, so my chainsaw had a little fuel in it and it looks pretty good, but let's set this aside and make sure you dispose of your fuel in a good, environmentally safe way. So let's put some new fuel in. If you do not know what fuel ratio of oil to gas you need to put in your chainsaw, then you should look up your chainsaw online and you can probably find the ratio. So this saw takes 20:1 ratio of gasoline to oil. Now I don't happen to have any of that ratio of gas already mixed, so I'm going to mix a little bit in this jar to test it. Again, if your saw doesn't say what ratio it is, make sure you look it up for your saw, because ratios are very important of how much fuel to put in and oil. Make sure you're also putting in ethanol free, because ethanol can destroy small engines like these. Now let's put it into the engine. So, now we are done filling up this engine. Check and make sure your oil has oil in the tank. If not, fill it up with some chain oil for a chainsaw. Let's move on. So now let's reassemble everything. So I'm going to just do what I did in reverse order. So let's start on that. Make sure that the teeth of the thing are facing the correct direction. That way you don't accidentally cut your wood with the wrong direction of cutting plates on the seat. When putting your chain on, make sure that the teeth of the chain are facing the correct direction for the cutting. That way you don't accidentally cut your wood with the wrong direction of cutting blades on this teeth. Before trying to start your saw for the first time, make sure you reconnect the spark plug boot to the spark plug. Alright, let's try firing it up. Alright, now that we've finished fixing this saw, let's try running it for the first time. So we have gas and oil. We have our stop switch turned on. In my case, mine has a throttle hold switch, which I have to hold up. Now, let's put on the choke to try to start this. Here it goes. Okay, quite smoky. Let's see what happens when we run it without that. Very smoky. I wonder why it's so smoky. Alright, well, it runs. Let's put the mic over next to it so you can hear it. So, as you can see, it runs great. It's just a little smoky, but we can fix that. Thanks for watching. This is Nick from Everything Electronic, and tune in next time. Thanks.